Hi everybody! Today we are going to talk about a couple of competencies. The first one is human behavior in the social environment, and that is basically the idea that a person's environment determines how fully their needs are able to be addressed. So when we say environment, we're talking about all the resources, relationships, and characteristics that surround and impact a person. And as social workers, it is really important for us to consider the environment in all of our interactions with clients and different groups of people. Understanding the environment will create a fuller picture of the person or the community and help us better address the needs or whatever problem that needs to be addressed.
Oh, hey. So a particularly relevant practice area where human behavior in the social environment is concerned is counseling and psychotherapy with individuals, groups, and families. And one of the ways that practice area is demonstrated is the way in which people modify the ways that they approach doing counseling with their clients based on their environments and things they might be dealing with.
Hi everyone. So when we think about human behavior in the social environment, we think about how that's implemented on a micro and macro scale. On a micro scale, if we're thinking about interpersonal practice maybe, that means that we want to know the way that we can best provide resources to our clients. So for us, that means really understanding the environment that they're coming from, because the way that we offer them our resources and the best help that they need is really different depending on what environment they're going back to. From a macro standpoint, I can use an example from my field placement. So I work with Detroit Jews for Justice, and we're doing a lot of work in Detroit. And the way that we're doing that work is that we're trying to change policy. So oftentimes I have a one-on-one meeting with someone in the community and I learn what their needs are based on the environment they're coming from. But then when we try to change the way that that resources and opportunities are available to them, we're looking at a more macro scale of social policy.
Hello! Next competency we're going to talk about is social policy. So as social workers, our goal should be to always promote policies that create a more equitable, and just society. Social workers should be aware of how policies impact the individuals that they work with, and then also be actively involved in promoting policies that are beneficial to the population that they're serving in general. Super important for social workers to always be aware of what policies currently exist and what else is being debated.
A relevant practice area for social policy is helping communities and groups to provide or improve social and health services. And one example of how that practice area is being demonstrated around social policy is the introduction of the HOPE Act, which stands for Health Outcomes Planning and Education, by Senator Debbie Stabenow, who is also a social worker. Basically, the act would help individuals and families who are dealing with Alzheimer's disease to better access care planning and long-term care.
So again, from a micro and macro standpoint, social policy is actually really related to human behavior and social environment. From a macro standpoint, social policy itself a lot of times acts on a more larger framework, right? So it's talking about societies and forms of governments potentially, but those laws and regulations that get formed, for us as social workers, we have to be really mindful of those things because they affect the relationships, which is a more micro standpoint, right? So individuals who are impacted by these really macro forms of social policy, that changes the resources that are available to them and the way that they relate to us as social workers.